Open the freezer, now, she snapped, knuckles white on the cold enamel. I swear I don't know what you're talking about. The man shot back, voice trembling, foot inching toward the door as if he could make a run for it. At the edge, a woman with hair slicked by sweat pushed forward, hissed, "Don't play dumb, not after all this." Her eyes flicked to the dusty Kelvinator. "You moved it for a reason," she pressed, voice cutting through the sour, damp air. He shifted, snapped, "It's just junk, just a busted fridge." "Open it or I will," she bit out. Her dog, hackles raised, rumbled a low growl that seemed too big for the cramped space. A metallic screech as the freezer door wrenched open, light catching on the edge of something unnatural, a seam in the floor below, thick with ancient dust. But the moment hovered, unfinished, electricity crackling as the truth pressed on the edge of revelation. Sometimes to see what's real, you have to start at the bottom, so let's go back to the very beginning. $44.12. That was the only certainty left as Tracy turned off Highway 7 just outside Jasper, Arkansas, tires whispering on gravel, a cold April rain slithering down the windshield. Her border collie Boone panted on the torn seat beside her, twitching each time thunder shook the tight, tin-walled cab. Cardboard boxes wedged behind the seats jittered with every pothole, holding the remnants of a home she'd once called hers. Next to her, Boone whined, shuffling closer. Tracy forced a smile, voice rough. "We're almost there, buddy, just up the hill, you got my back, right?" The dog licked at her fingers, left white on the steering wheel. The little gesture steadied her more than she'd admit. It should have been a funeral that offered rest. Instead, she was here, broke, bruised by divorce, clinging to this one odd remnant her late mother had left, a sagging shed on 2 acres of tangled blackberry and scrub. A dump, her Aunt Doris had laughed, the memory prickling Tracy's neck. If she wanted you to have something valuable, she'd have given you more than that old shack and a field everyone avoids. Her Uncle Warren, gruff with a permanent smoker's cough, had crowed, "That eyesore, if you're smart you'll torch it, might finally rid the family of old ghosts." At the funeral, Doris hadn't bothered to lower her voice. "Tracy, look at her, thinks she'll find something special inside that shed. She always was a dreamer, tried too hard." Warren had smirked, eyes shining wet under his brow. "Well, good luck with your dump, but please, a little dignity, Sell us the land when you come to your senses." Their laughter echoed now, stinging as the shed finally lurched into view. A gnawed-bone structure with warped planks, peeling tape dangling from the eaves, turquoise paint faded to the same sickly blue as a healing bruise. But there was something odd. The big refrigerator parked in front, a hulking antique, its Kelvinator badge dulled by rain, not plugged to any visible source. Why would anyone leave that out here, not inside the house? Her phone buzzed, a new message, Aunt Doris. "We're finalizing the estate tomorrow. If you've come to your senses, let us know. Last chance, Tracy." The words pressed cold against her ribs. If you've ever watched the last piece of your life being mocked by people who never believed in you and wondered if maybe they'd missed something, then keep listening. This is how you turn the story around. Boone barked, his nose pressed to the window, tail thumping as the wind hauled past. It started with that fridge. Rain slicked her boots as Tracy stepped from the truck, Boone at her heel. The shed yawned before her, door half unhinged, the Kelvinator sitting in front like a sentry in the gloom. She pushed past bramble and mud, rain biting her cheeks, every step a stubborn refusal to turn back. Lightning flared, stark on the field behind her, and she paused, remembering the sharp bite of Doris's words in the way and the wills reading everything else. House, land, cash, even the battered family silver had gone to Doris and Warren while Tracy received the hillside structure and adjoining lot. Her mother's voice echoed from a yellowed photo in her wallet. "Don't you let them make you small, Trace. There's more inside you, and maybe inside this world, than anyone guesses." The porch was warped. She shoved the door with her shoulder, Boone pressing against her thigh for courage. The interior stank of mildew and old oil. Dim light revealed rows of rusted lawn chairs, empty jars labeled in a trembling hand, a pile of rotting newspapers. The Kelvinator hummed faintly, though Tracy couldn't see any power cord. Then she saw it, a scrap of envelope wedged under the fridge, nearly sucked into the crack where the compressor's shadow pooled thick and dark. She tugged it free. The handwriting her grandmother's, crabbed but unmistakable. Inside, a single key marked freezer. Her heart hammered under her damp jacket. Boone sneezed, nudging the fridge with his nose. The puzzle had begun. Tracy stared at the ugly, ancient appliance, rain pounding the roof above. "All right, buddy," she murmured. "Looks like we're in for more than I thought." She rattled the handle. It was heavier than seemed possible. Boone barked once sharp, then whined. She gripped the key, cold metal biting her palm, and knelt, fighting memory, fatigue, and the biting cold rolling in from the open fields. Some stories start with a funeral and end with revelation. This one was about to unravel the deeper lie. In the half-light of the shed, Tracy ran her hand along the Kelvinator's edge. The key slid home with a reluctant click. Boone tensed. The handle protested, squealing as she cranked. The freezer door fell open, not to rows of frosted coils, but to a darkness dropping straight to the earth. A musty, slow breath of air billowed up, old and heavy. She fumbled for her phone, swept the flashlight through the gap. There steps. Lead narrow, descending into the foundation stones. Stones that, from the outside, had looked solid but now revealed a secret. Boone pawed the threshold, tail uncertain. Tracy whispered, "Guess we're going down, boy." She dropped her phone's light into the cavity. Shadow played over a steep metal staircase, each rung speckled with rust. At the bottom, a glint of metal, then the sharp blue edge of a safe. She hesitated. Was this what Doris and Warren had feared or simply ignored? Flashes of birthdays spent alone, her mother's trembling voice promising, "One day you'll see why this little place matters," ran through her tight chest. Tracy descended, Boone patting down after, and the air thickened with every cautious step. She reached the basement floor, flashlight chasing dust through the darkness. The safe crouched behind old paint cans and a heap of ashes. Its door bore her grandmother's initials, etched in a shaking hand. She drew a ragged breath, pressed her ear to the metal. Nothing, no ticking, no hum, just silence as old as her family's secrets. Boone jammed his nose under a tarp. His whine was softer now, uncertain. With trembling hands, Tracy pried at the creased envelope stuck to the safe's lid. Inside, a letter. The first line read in spidery ink. "If you are reading this, my girl, they've already lied to you." Her mouth went dry. Boone pressed into her knee, anchoring her in the dark. She unfolded the letter, and the weight of decades tumbled out. "My darling Trace, if Doris and Warren are reading this, shame on them. But if it's you, then you listened and you loved, and that is enough. I set this aside for you before things turned mean." She blinked away hot salt and read on. Lines detailing tiny withdrawals, savings, gold bought in the 1940s, cash tucked away where hands greedy for more wouldn't think to look. Her grandmother named names, Doris, Warren, their countless schemes with the lawyers from Little Rock. She described the trust, the paperwork kept hidden in the old shed freezer, and further instructions. When they sneer, let them. When they gloat, let them. Prove them wrong if you can. A second envelope, heavy, sealed with wax, slid free. Tracy's hands shook as she read her name across the front. Inside, bank numbers, wiring info, instructions to retrieve all records the lawyer will try to keep from you, and the lock combination. Her head swam as Boone barked, sharp, urgent. She scrambled to the safe. The combination clattered on the dial under her fingertips. The door gave with a low groan. Cash in neat bundles. Gold bars stacked small but weighty, gleaming dully under the harsh beam of her phone. Documents with her name. A trust fund, her name inked everywhere. Balances she couldn't comprehend, wild numbers that fell somewhere between 5 and 15 million. It was real, and more than anything, it was hers. But above, heavy feet tromped across the floorboards. Dust rained down. A voice crackled through the thin air. "Someone down there, Tracy, you snooping for more than disappointment." "Aunt Doris." Tracy hugged the documents to her chest. Boone shivered at her feet. The next move would have to be smart and fast. The deadline clock had started, 48 hours before auction, before she lost it all. Tracy scrambled up the stairs, Rain finding her again as she burst outside. Her phone buzzed, a message from Leela, Buffalo River Gazette. Heard you're back, heard the family's up to old tricks, could use a story, got a minute. She hesitated, teeth gritted. Boone danced at her side, anxious to flee the shed's shadow and the memory of boots above. She typed back, 48 hours, if I don't win, they own it all. Leela responded instantly, I'm in your corner, coffee in 10. 10 minutes later, they hovered in the back corner at Jasper's only cafe, the shadows of tired locals and the steam of burnt coffee thick around. Leela was all sharp elbows and quicker eyes, dark hair tucked under a ball cap. Feels like deja vu, she quipped. Doris and Warren skimming again. Tracy slid her phone and a single gold bar across the battered tabletop. Tell me I'm not crazy. Leela whistled, low and long. Honey, you're either the luckiest hillbilly since Rockefeller discovered oil out here, or you just stole the family thunder. Tracy's fingers trembled as she slid the trust paperwork over. There's more, the numbers, they're insane, can you help? Leela snapped photos, her thumbs fast. Warren's been in and out of probate court for years. If he hit a trust, that's serious. Let me dig, but you have to stay ahead, they'll move quick. Tracy exhaled, years of belief and rage tangled. Auction S in 2 days. If I can't prove it's mine, it's gone. Leela nodded, meet me at the Gazette at 5. I'll pull whatever's public, watch your back. Boone pawed at Tracy's knee, eyes bright. Don't worry, bud, Tracy muttered, mustering confidence. We're not running anymore, not from them. Leela rose, war paint set. Don't get sentimental, get proof, that's how you win. Tracy gathered the papers, plan forming. First step, get the trust documents notarized, then file notice at the courthouse. She'd have to move fast. Doris and Warren wouldn't sit idle once they realized she'd unearthed what they'd buried. Jasper's courthouse loomed at the top of the hill, its green dome barely visible under the bruised gray sky. Tracy hitched Boone back into her truck, nerves humming under her skin. When she pulled up, a patrol car idled at the curb. Deputy Harlan, all big mustache and suspicion, leaned out the window. You Tracy James, heard there's some property squabble, he called, lips twitching. Tracy forced a smile. That's one way to put it, I've got documents to file, urgent. He squinted, eyes flicking to Boone. You need backup. She hesitated. Boone, sensing her unease, pressed warm against her calf. No, sir, but thank you. The clerk inside was brisk, eyes flicking over Tracy, then the dog. Probate or civil? Probate, Tracy said, pushing the trust paperwork across. There's proof, funds set up in my grandmother's name. My aunt and uncle, they. The words jammed in her throat. The clerk pulled out a form. Here's the process. Fill this. If there's fraud, the judge'll pause the auction, but you'd better hurry, they might try to block it. Tracy's head spun. She scribbled furiously, the gold bar zipped in Boone's canvas carrier at her feet. The night stretched taut as fresh laundry. Back in her truck, she watched lightning crawl along the ridgeline while Boone slept beside her, paws twitching to some gentler dream. Leela's message blinked on her screen. They moved money fast. I've got receipts. Doris is panicking. Tracy drove to Leela's narrow apartment above the old print shop. The hallway smelled of scorched coffee and mothballs. Boone sniffed the peeling turquoise door before Tracy pushed inside. Leela was already sifting through court docs. Look, Doris and Warren created a shell company last week, moving assets. They wanted to buy at auction, then flip. That's theft, Tracy said, voice ragged. It's criminal fraud. With this, Leela slapped the trust documents. You win if you move fast. Tracy nodded, feeling the burn of old humiliations dissolve into raw, focused energy. Rain hammered as Doris showed up, pounding on the door. Tracy, you conniving brat. Leela blocked the entrance, grinning. Careful, ma'am, whole block will hear you. If you know what's good for you, you'll walk away, Doris snarled, spit flecking her lips. Tracy, too tired for games, stepped forward. Your game's over, I've got what matters, and everyone's about to see it. Warren's voice echoed from the stairway, rough-edged and winded. You've always been weak, Trace, let this go. But Leela lifted her phone, filming. Care to say that again, sir? Boone growled, tail stiff. Doris shoved a manicured finger in Tracy's face, her mask slipping. Listen here, missy. That money, whatever it is, belongs to the family, not some charity case who barely stuck around after your mother died. Tracy's jaw trembled, but her voice was iron. My mother trusted me because I never stooped to your level. Warren tried to jam his boot into the door, but Leela snapped, touch it, and you'll meet the sheriff early. Tension snapped in the room, the truce, such as it was, obliterated. Doris hissed low, think you've won. We'll drag you through court until you and that mutt are starving. Tracy bent to scratch Boone's head, eyes never leaving Doris's. At least I can look at myself in the mirror tomorrow. The cousins, sensing tides turning, backed away, but not before Warren spat. We'll see about that at auction. Leela handed Tracy the newly notarized documents. Be at the courthouse by 10. I'll get the Gazette on board. The next day dawned close and muggy, as if the whole world held its breath. Tracy stood outside the auction hall, Boone beside her, Leela waving her press badge. Inside, a ring of onlookers buzzed with gossip. Doris and Warren stalked in, lawyer flanking them, chins high, eyes cold. Tracy pressed the safe's combination into Leela's palm. If they try anything, open the freezer. Leela whispered, old man said he saw Doris pull something from the shed late at night last week, called it insurance. Tracy's pulse thudded, Doris's eyes narrowed. The judge called order, voice echoing against the high, stained ceiling. We have a last-minute filing. Tracy James alleges fraud in the handling of the Marigold property and presents new evidence. Doris's lawyer blustered, these are spurious claims, Your Honor, the terms. Leela stood, voice slicing through the static. State law says hidden trusts and concealed assets invalidate prior transfers. Warren's knuckles gleamed white as he glared. This is a circus. Tracy raised her voice. Ask him how he moved the fridge. Go on. The room hushed. Doris snapped, she's grasping at straws. Judge peered over bifocals. Sir, did you enter the shed prior to today? Warren grunted, not since the reading. Leela fired back, show us the inside of the freezer, now. Tension thrummed, Doris shuffled, eyes darting. The judge gestured. If the property contains evidence, we'll adjourn to inspect. Everyone filed out, a hush broken only by boots crunching wet gravel. The sky threatened more rain. They reached the shed, Boone nose down, tail stiff. Doris hung back, face drained. Tracy squared her shoulders. Open it, Warren, or let me. Warren spat, it's just junk, just a busted fridge. She barked, open it, or I will. Boone let out a deep, rumbling growl. The air smelled of mud, old wood, impending closure. A deputy wrenched the freezer open and with a rusty squeal, revealed the gaping staircase below, old dust tumbling down. Judge murmured, proceed, Miss James. Tracy moved first, flashlight arcing down into the vault, Leela and the crowd tight behind. Doris's hand clutched Warren's sleeve, panic overtaking haughtiness. The safe glinted. The judge, Leila, and two officers pressed in tight. Tracy recited the combination, fingers slipping as she spun the dial. With a reluctant click, the safe swung open to reveal stacks of bills, gold bars, and the trust paperwork. Her name, the date, and the clear implication that Doris and Warren had attempted to bury her share, moving interest and assets into shell companies. Boone barked, sharp and insistent. Doris collapsed onto a rusted chair, face ashen. Warren glared, defeated, sweat carving courses through the grime. The judge sorted through the paperwork in silence before intoning, "These sums, this is fraud on a grand scale. Assets wrongfully withheld. I'm halting the auction effective immediately." Leela recorded every word, gaze triumphant. Doris's lawyer tried feebly, "We acted in good faith." The judge cut him off. "You'll answer to the state, and Miss James will ensure your trust is restored." Officers escorted Doris and Warren away, one last glance full of venom. Doris whispered, "You ruined us." Tracy, catching her own breath, met her eyes. "No, you did that yourselves." In the hush that followed, Boone nudged her, eyes bright. Leela reached over, grin wide. "Now that's a story." As proceedings unfolded, Doris and Warren offered to turn on each other for lighter sentences. Doris, desperate, gave up emails proving Warren had laundered much of the trust's interest. Warren, in turn, provided details of shell companies and back payments siphoned since 2002. The local Gazette ran front-page stories for weeks. State authorities swarmed Newton County. The community spat out the aunt and uncle, shunning them hard. Their assets were seized, properties auctioned off for cents. Neighbors turned cold, the grocery clerk refusing to ring up their purchases. The judge handed Tracy full control of the trust and the property, restoring not only her name but the possibility of building something new. Doris and Warren, facing felony charges, went their separate ways, each angling for the smallest sentence with the biggest betrayal. Jasper's townsfolk quietly rallied for Tracy, potluck dinners, new paint for the cabin, mended fences. Boone made fast friends among children who finally had something thrilling to gossip about. Rebuilding took time, but with restored funds, Tracy refitted her mother's cottage, transformed the battered shed into an airy studio, and planted wildflowers along the tear-shaped hill. The cottage pulsed with new life, laughter spilling from open windows. Tracy and Boone walked those 2 acres every evening, a simple promise kept. And if the old Kelvinator still perched in the yard, nobody thought to move it. Some secrets, Tracy knew, belonged to those willing to see past the dust and listen to the right voices. Every so often, Tracy caught herself pausing in a doorway, Boone at heel, savoring the hush where betrayal used to echo, and hearing only peace. People say nothing on a hill in Newton County is worth much. Truth is, the things they dismiss often hold the kind of value you can't bury. Life handed Tracy $44 and change and a shed full of ghosts. She built something better from it. Sometimes, vindication isn't thunderous or even sweet, it's waking up to your own name cleared and a future only you could have carved. If you've ever been told your portion of the world is empty, remember, sometimes the only way out is through the darkest roots. And when you rebuild, do it with the doors wide open, so even the echoes of laughter cannot keep you small. It took months for the dust, both literal and metaphorical, to finally settle. The legal maelstrom swirled on for a time, letters from state attorneys and restitution claims dropping weekly into Tracy's mailbox, but she rarely flinched anymore when she brushed them aside on the crooked kitchen table. The real business of reclaiming her life was happening not in the courthouse, but right here on these battered 2 acres, beneath the high arc of Arkansas sky. The shed, scrubbed clean of secrets and mildew, was now Tracy's kingdom. With every coat of paint, every salvaged board she pried up and hammered down again, she took something broken and made it new. Boone ranged over the field, chasing shadows and flush quails, always bounding back to her side with a look that said, "Look how much world there is left, Mom." On a soft flannel morning that summer, Leela rolled up in her farm truck trailing the scent of creosote and strong coffee. She hopped down, holding 2 mugs and a battered folder. "You're halfway to being local legend at this point," she crowed, towing aside a brick that had served as a makeshift step. "The phone at the Gazette just keeps ringing. Did the girl with the dog really find gold? Did Doris really go to jail? Did you really turn down the book deal?" Tracy laughed, a clean, surprised sound. "Let them wonder." "You ever think about leaving?" Leela asked, handing over coffee, her gaze shaded by the brim of her hat. Tracy sipped, breathing in steam. I tried running for years, got me nowhere I couldn't find in 1 square mile right here. I'd rather stay and see what grows." Leela grinned, the edges of her smile creasing deeper. "Well, if ever you want your story told truthfully, you know where to find me." Boone, pawing through the wildflowers, barked. He unearthed a mouse or some half-buried toy, tail a glorious banner. "You thinking about starting up that gardening club your mama always wanted?" Leela's voice turned hopeful. "God knows this town could use some fresh ideas." Tracy glanced toward the hillside, now splashed with blooms, coneflower, goldenrod, her mother's iris reborn from tough little corms. Maybe something even bigger. She looked back at Leela, letting her next words roll easy. "The trust, after all is said and done, it's more wealth than I know what to do with. I've been thinking some of it should stay here. Scholarships, new roofs for the hardware, upgrades at the clinic, not so much charity as restitution. For all the ways Doris and Warren shortchanged this place." That made Leela stare. "You serious? They'll try to name the park after you if you're not careful." Tracy's laughter this time was softer. "Let them use my mother's name. She did the hard work. All I did was listen." The days lengthened. Word drizzled through Jasper that the freezer girl was paying off layaways at the feed store for neighbors in need, that she'd set aside fund for the school's battered lunch program, bought books for the library. People who'd once crossed the street to avoid her, mercy there goes that family, now nodded, even tipped their hats. Some offered pies or jars of jam because in Newton County that meant thank you. On evenings tinged gold and blue, Leela would park herself at Tracy's kitchen table, the two of them sorting through files, receipts, half-plans. "Every hero's got a sidekick," she'd say, winking, scribbling notes for her serial in the Gazette. "And every worthy battle ends with someone making sure they write the real ending." One day, the county treasurer dropped by with trembling hands and a red letterman's jacket stretched tight over an old belly. "You know, Miss James," he said, "I knew your grandmother back when. She'd sit on that porch, tell me not to let the bankers take what wasn't rightfully theirs. Funny, isn't it? How time turns." Tracy smiled, cradling a mug Boone pressed warm at her feet. "I'm just trying to find my place, maybe leave things a little less tangled." He nodded, eyes misting. "You did more than that, you said it right." Through it all, Boone's devotion remained constant. He was there for every call and every visitor, his presence settling even the most nervous guests. During the first potluck Tracy hosted, the town's children ran wild over the bluegrass as adults gathered for food, laughter, and stories, many at Tracy's expense. Some folks find treasure in hills. One old-timer joked, hoisting his glass. "We just found Tracy." After, as dusk fell and fireflies blinked in the scrub, Leela lingered on the edge of the porch steps. "You ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Opening that freezer, chasing all this pain just to get what you already deserved?" For a moment, Tracy looked out at the fields, the house with its new roof, the garden, watered by school kids, the sturdy old Kelvinator now wreathed in honeysuckle instead of secrets. She drew Boone closer and kissed his warm head. "I think I always thought my piece of the world was worthless. That's what everyone told me." She hesitated, but her voice was steady as stone. "But turns out sometimes you have to haul up all the old ghosts, all the hidden things, and let them see daylight, just so you know the ground you're standing on is truly yours, even if it takes digging through darkness to get there." Leela smiled, dimples deep as river stones. "Seems to me that's exactly what you did." In the weeks that followed, Doris's letters came, penitent at first, then sour, and finally resigned. Tracy read some, tossed most. She wrote back to one just once, "I hope one day you find peace. I already have." By autumn, when the fields glowed with the last of the sunflowers, the Kelvinator freezer stood as both monument and joke, locals leaving small offerings, penned wishes, half-melted action figures, a lone blue ribbon beside it. When strangers asked if it was the legendary safe, Tracy laughed and let them imagine what they wanted. "Everyone loves a mystery," she thought, "but I love a morning walk with nowhere pressing to go." One shimmering evening, as the sky flushed mulberry and Boone sprawled at her side, Tracy thumbed through her grandmother's weathered letter again. There was one line she'd nearly missed in all the fever of first reading. It came near the end, written sideways along the margin. Don't let them shrink you, my girl. Claim your space. The world's wider than the small box they try to keep you in. Tracy folded the letter, tucked it away. She looked out over the land, her land now, honest and earned and gloriously untidy, listened to the chorus of crickets, and finally allowed herself a rare tear. Leela, arriving once more for coffee and a porch chat, found her like that. Hey hero, she teased, sitting down. Next big mystery. Tracy shook her head, grinning through it all. No mystery, just tonight, just Boone snoring and the moon coming up strong. I haven't felt small in a long while. Leela nodded, voice gentle. Seems to me you never were. They settled into the easy hush of friends at peace, the kind only found when every dark door's been opened and every secret at last allowed to breathe. And somewhere out in the cooling dusk, the wind riffled through the grass and around the steadfast Kelvinator, finding nothing left to hide. More seasons slipped by, bright and bruised and quick. There were new fences now, sturdy and straight, hammered in place by hands Tracy once thought might never stop shaking. She finished what her grandmother had started, a small orchard ringed in borrowed wildflowers with saplings that caught the rain in trembling leaves. Sometimes, on slow afternoons, kids from the new school program wandered up the lane, carrying jars for the shed's first honey harvest or flowers clutched in sticky fists for Miss James and Boone. Tracy never tired of the way their laughter stitched old wounds closed. Late one fall, as a blood-orange sunset painted the land gold, Doris reappeared, thin, uncertain, standing on the boundary between field and gravel road. Boone's bark warned Tracy she wasn't imagining it. Doris stared at the ground, clutching an envelope, her pride visibly fraying. Tracy met her at the fence, holding fear at bay. You here for more ghosts, she said, voice steady as ever. Doris shook her head, lips thin. No more ghosts, she hesitated, passing over the envelope. It's an apology, the only one I'll offer. Tracy let silence reign, weighing its gravity, then opened the flap. Inside, a faded snapshot of her mother, young and laughing in wild sun, and a single note, clumsy in its effort but genuine. Doris's eyes stayed pinned to the horizon. We all get small sometimes, I suppose. I wanted you to know I see now how I tried to make you feel. Tracy studied her for a long moment. Sometimes forgiveness is just letting the past finish running its course. She tucked the note away. You can go, Doris, or you can stay a while, up to you. Doris looked back once, drew a ragged breath, then finally managed, maybe next time. She left on silent steps, lighter by the gate. That night, Leela plunked down at Tracy's kitchen table, newspaper in hand. Headlines blared, Historic Trust Fund's New Beginnings, and right below, a photo of Tracy beaming, Boone leaping in a blur beside her. Leela grinned, tucking hair behind her ear. You ready for whatever comes next? Tracy leaned back, gaze drifting out to where the orchard caught the last of the sun. For the first time, I think I am. Boone pressed his head into her lap. She scratched his ears. Good, Leela said softly. Because, friend, this is what it looks like to finally come home. Between them, old scars, old grief, and acres of new possibility. Outside, the freezer stood sentinel, not guarding secrets anymore, but welcoming everything ahead. And this time, Tracy faced the horizon smiling, knowing the story was hers, open-ended, unafraid, and wide as the Arkansas sky.